One of the core things that you get once you convert the imagery into data in analytical form is everything can be marked and measured. So like you're identifying, you saw things on the roof like pooling water. Well, how significant of an event is that? So can you measure them? Can you mark them? Can you count them? So you see how many of them there are. Now with things like potential roof leak areas on a roof, typically those are limited. But if you look at cracking in a parking lot, there's almost no way to do that manually. If the drone can look over several acres worth of parking lot and see where cracks reside, where there are depressions, where it needs to be slurry coated or repainted, and measure that whole area, all of a sudden the parking lot becomes a data point. And you can say, oh, if I have to slurry coat, 40,000 square feet of parking lot at 50 cents a square foot, this is a $20,000 quantifiable outcome. So that drone flight can help potential purchasers negotiate better deals.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwayne Clark.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwayne Clark, the number one source for top interviews with all the best real estate investing experts and thought leaders. Today we have Jon Tull. Jon is the CEO of Dronifi. Dronifi provides commercial real estate brokers and acquisition teams and owners with a suite of data-rich videos and reports for due diligence and property inspections. Jon, thank you for joining us on the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Dwayne. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We spoke a couple weeks ago. We kind of connected on LinkedIn and kind of found out about your services. I've been very intrigued by this topic because in our industry, in the commercial real estate brokerage side, it's used quite a lot as far as marketing. So it's very interesting to kind of learn more about your technology because it's used on a more deeper level. But before we kick off things, would you mind sharing for the audience your background and a little bio of your company?
Absolutely. So back in the day, and that's way back in the day for me, it turns out, I was a commercial real estate analyst for Marcus & Millichap. Did that for quite some time. I then moved on, started my own company. It was a software company dealing in the multifamily space. It was a lead management tool. And so I grew that up from the kind of garage band startup, ran it for 11 years, and then sold to RealPage, which is a well-known software provider for the multifamily space, and now in other spaces as well. And then subsequent to that, I started Dronifi, which also deals with commercial real estate and other business verticals. It's drone-based largely, so it's aerial imagery, but also we provide data consumption and analysis for non-drone-based information as well.
Very cool. And then when did you start Dronifi? How long ago?
2012. So we've been at this for a little while.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's because I noticed, like, as I don't know when the kind of the drone technology really started to kick off, but I can kind of notice now 2017, 2018, it's really like heavily used, especially in my marketplace as far as marketing for properties. We specialize in single tenant net lease. So investors are, buying a lot of properties sight unseen. So they kind of rely heavily to see kind of aerial views and kind of see the whole marketplace, population and traffic counts, but kind of learning from you and hearing about kind of the technology that you guys are adopting. That's a lot deeper than that. Would you mind kind of going a little bit deeper as far as what your service provides for property owners and commercial real estate brokers?
Absolutely. So your experience dealing with drones is pretty common early on in the drone industry. Marketing videos and pictures from above were really the a core deliverable from a drone flight. And what we found is, even though there's value in that, and that's interesting, it falls short for many who really don't want to look at the video if it's not marketing-esque. They'd really like to solve a business problem. So their goal is not to see drone footage. Their drone is to find an issue. Like, is there a roof leak on this building that I'm planning to invest in? Does the fit and finish of the property match the pictures that I've received in the marketing materials? Is it well kept? What is the environment around it? I want to see it with my own eyes rather than have it rendered in text in a offering memorandum. So what we found is folks are eager to get additional data, not just imagery, in order to do their real estate analysis.
As far as kind of like the technology, Kuzi talked a little bit, you had mentioned it's kind of like inspections to say that it matches up from, the offering memorandums or the stuff that you get from the, from the seller or the selling agent. What are the type of stuff I was kind of interested, because I saw a video that you sent me that it was a apartment building and it was showing the aerial thing, but it had stuff where it was showing on the roof, it was able to identify, the stains and the potential problems with the roofs or potential cracks in the parking lot. Can you kind of talk about the power of the technology of what it really can, benefit from, from an owner or a purchaser?
Well, sure. Convert the imagery into data and analytical form is everything can be marked and measured. So like you're identifying, you saw things on the roof like pooling water. Well, how significant of an event is that? So can you measure them? Can you mark them? Can you count them? So you see how many of them there are. Now with things like potential roof leak areas on a roof, typically those are limited. But if you look at cracking in a parking lot, there's almost no way to do that manually. If the drone can look over several acres worth of parking lot and see where cracks reside, where there are depressions, where it needs to be slurry coated or repainted, and measure that whole area, all of a sudden the parking lot becomes a data point. And you can say, oh, if I have to slurry coat, 40,000 square feet of parking lot at 50 cents a square foot, this is a $20,000 quantifiable outcome. So that drone flight can help potential purchasers negotiate better deals, as an example. It's not anecdotal that I may need to slurry coat, but if I did, here's what it's worth to me or what it would cost me to solve that problem. So it's these kinds of things that I think are the future of drones and commercial real estate, and that's the quantification of all the things that you see.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially during a due diligence phase. You can be able to kind of, budget numbers or, or a property management company where they're able to kind of assess, the type of repairs that are needed and their cost and just, the quantifiable data that you need in order to make better decisions. That's, definitely key there. As far as kind of like, I know drone servicing is getting more popular. And in your background, you kind of mentioned kind of your evolving with the technology. Can you kind of tell us like what makes you guys a little bit different than some of the drone companies that are kind of marketing out there?
Sure. Well, our big distinction is our ability to convert imagery into actionable form. So it's using computer vision tools and mapping tools. In our full application, you can identify an area, let's say it's a gas station, and you want to do some beautification of the gas station. You can say, well, I'd like this area to have new flowers planted, and that area is 500 square feet. And I would like to bid this out and send to my landscaping firm, this is the area where I want to have flowers planted. This is how large it is. I'd like you to respond back to me and tell me how much it's going to cost to do that work. So all of a sudden, the imagery becomes very actionable in that they receive a message with the driving direction link. They can click it. They can drive right to the spot. They can see what was marked on the map. They can provide their response to the bid. And all of a sudden, the aerial imagery has a new life. That's what's different about what we do. Most everyone else is providing pictures, but pictures fall short. They're a 10% solution when really the consumer of the imagery is trying to solve a business problem. That's how we're different.
Yeah, I like that approach there. But yeah, it was really key, is really attractive is the fact that just the data itself that you get from it, because nowadays you just need more information to make better business decisions. With this application, you mentioned gas stations and retail and apartments. Does your service fit more for 100+ units or kind of larger stuff? Can this fit kind of like a smaller scale for maybe like a single family developer or something like that? How low can we go with this?
That's a good question. With Dronifi being a platform, each one of the verticals that we address, multifamily versus retail versus single family versus gas stations, all has their own vertical. So all of the reporting and things that you map in the interface are all true to the vertical that's being served. So for a gas station, if you're running reports for gas stations, it's not going to talk about roofs. It's going to talk about canopies, because that's the name of the thing that's over the gas station pumps. So you're going to have propane filling stations at a gas station, and you wouldn't have that in a single family home. So all the things that are there in the analysis and the counting and the marking and measuring are all true to the vertical. So that can go all the way down to a single family home that's going to have a backyard with a fence and a pool, and these are all named terms. All of those things can be counted, marked, measured, and then rolled up to a portfolio. And that's also how we're different. Most drone companies are flying for a specific property. All of that for us becomes part of a portfolio. So if a company had a series of assets, let's say some were multifamily, some mixed use, and some strip retail, all of that is visible and can be sliced up towards the regional manager that handles each one of those asset types in the region where they do their work. So one more stride of making the data more actionable for the business use case at hand. So, but it can go all the way down to a single family unit, Wayne. So it doesn't have to be a big property to work.
Oh, very good to know. We had mentioned a little bit pre-call that's very interesting, because we have some farming investors that listen on to the show. Can you kind of explain the application and kind of the the benefits and the uses for that?
Absolutely. So our farm application, one of the things we've spent significant time on is what we call signature identification. So let's say you fly over an orchard and you want to find a particular issue, like trees that are stressed, perhaps they have not had adequate water. So you have a signature, you can tell, and the grower will say, oh, I know where the stressed trees are. They're over here. We had a line break on Tuesday. And when the drone flies over, you can see the trees respond. They're telling you a story that we can pick up using the computer vision tools that apply to agriculture. So it's all tuned to that particular use case. Also, we have IoT device integration where we can take sensor data from soil moisture sensors, weather sensors. We can control valves. All of that is also applying to the agricultural use case, which is much different than the commercial real estate use case. We're doing some special work in cannabis now too, because the monitoring and tracking of those plants is even more heavily regulated, and the precision of the data you need to collect follows right in tune with how that crop needs to be serviced.
Wow, very interesting stuff. As far as kind of like your reach, we have people all over the country that listen to this that may be interested in it. Can you service nationwide? How far you guys can do service?
Absolutely. The U.S. is very easy. There's a heavy pilot density in the U.S. market and North America. We actually have customers all over the world. So we are not geographically limited in that way.
Mm. And how long do you think kind of takes for the service? Say if a person orders, to get the the data collection service, how long is it kind of typically you expect someone to wait, or should be, timing out as far as their schedule?
So typically, that's a good question. The biggest variable is going to be weather. If the wind's blowing really hard or it's raining, that's not good. That's not a good environment for drones. So weather, excluded from the formula, typically the flight happens within 24 to 48 hours, typically. If you're trying to do a thermal flight, you have to fly it at a certain time during the day. It's the crest between daytime and nighttime, and you get the greatest change in thermal response for a property. It's when you can see roof leaks with a thermal camera, where during the day you can't. So it depends on your use case, but that may take a little bit longer. And then processing the data into useful form, if it's using a tool like Dronifi, typically that takes 24 to 48 hours for all the computer vision algorithms to run and for the reports to be generated.
As far as, are you seeing like a lot of, say, property management companies using this like on a continual basis? I mean, you can use this application for kind of like inspections, risk assessments, and capital improvements, but are you seeing people using like kind of like on a monthly or, multiple week basis to kind of assess different things? Is it used for that purpose as well?
It can be. We're seeing that's just starting now, though. There's a different change in the cadence of property management if you start flying that often. And the use case would be, perhaps you're not going to have a regional manager or a team travel out to a property as often as they did, because they're going to let drone imagery and other imagery and analysis all sweep together and stand in for what otherwise would be a plane trip, car rental, and a hotel for an individual or a team to go to the property. Now, clearly going to the property remains important, but if the drone can stand in and create that cost savings along the way, and create a historical record of what was discovered and found, there's real value in that. So I think that the industry is just coming to grips with the potential of cost savings and more granular decision making when it comes to day-to-day operations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I know prices can vary from project to project, but is there kind of like a button range that people kind of can imagine for, say, for example, like a multifamily inspection? You wanted to check out a couple of the roofs, parking lots, and places that is really not easily accessible. You can kind of give a range for people that may be curious about it.
Sure. So just to give you a little perspective, if you were to hire a drone flight service provider just to go and collect imagery for a property, that's going to range between about $200 and $500 for the pilot to show up. We're talking about a certified insured pilot doing professional work. We charge something in that range, depending on how far away the property was from their home base, and some other variables like that. Once the data is curated using a system like Dronifi, a full inspection, which includes all the marketing video footage, all the inspection, the data has been curated, packaged into video form, and available on the Dronifi enterprise platform. That whole assessment is $1,800.
Yeah, that's not so bad at all. Can you share any maybe interesting stories of any maybe larger, I mean, of course, not naming the names or anything, but any large assignments that your application was used for?
Sure. Well, if you're talking about, we were approached about a project. I'm glad you said don't name names, because I'm not able to name the name. It's a large portfolio, 620 properties. They wanted to do assessments of roofs and walls, and they wanted to see where leaks had started to develop. So the nature of that project is to collect data over the entire scope of properties, identify areas where damage has already occurred or may occur. So there is a CapEx exercise, planning their budget spend based on issues that were discovered. So particular focus on roofs and walls, but also looking at the grounds, trying to see if there was water pooling, which is, water is always an evil thing with property intrusion and so forth. Also wear and tear issues. So they had these sort of ancillary benefits beyond roofs and walls. But the core driver was to collect that data and then roll it up by region and up to the portfolio to create CapEx efficiency portfolio-wide. So the nature of that project created enormous cost savings because the pilot was able to go collect the data without any inspection to start. They could send the discovered problems to a contractor and say, can you give me a proposal on what it would cost to fix this? So even before people showed up on site, you had an inexpensive drone flight that converted the imagery into data. You had a contractor who converted the problems identified into a proposal, a repair proposal. That is so much more efficient than shipping out teams and then trying to convert all the things discovered into imagery, reports, here's the problem, where will you have it fixed, all those tactical things that eat up so much of our time when we're doing portfolio work. So that's an example of trimming a lot of the excess time and the cost out of a CapEx exercise.
Wow, yeah, that's very interesting. It's technology, and just seeing how it's kind of just evolving compared to how we used to do it back in the day, and it's just so amazing, like how things has changed and how things are so much better. People could be more efficient. Things get done in a more timely and more effective manner. From kind of talking to you, Jon, and a kind of a personal, you started successful companies. You created this amazing company. For people that's kind of listening, that's kind of inspired by that, what's like a typical day for you? Do you have any specific morning routines? Are you an early riser? What are some kind of advice you can give for the listeners today?
My claim to fame is perseverance. People will call me a grinder because I can take a task and hunt it. And so I typically divide my day up into two parts. I do start in the morning and work through. I try not to do email, try to do thought work and things when I'm fresh first thing in the morning. When I get to the afternoon, I'll spend more time doing email and sort of the kind of production level, got to get it done, administrative work. And then in the evening, I come back, and that has two purposes, really. I get my important family time in without running through my whole day. And I also can connect with the international teams that run counter-cyclical to our time zones. Mm-hmm. So that's very helpful. So I typically put in 2 to 3 hours in the evening time, making sure that I queue up work and connect with other groups.
Cool. Yeah, and mentioned family. Is there something that you can say that you're most grateful for?
I am grateful every single day. I have wonderful kids. It's one of the great joys of my life to spend my evening with my children and talk about what went on in their day. I just feel like I'm such a blessed person having the family that I do.
Yeah, thank you. Jon, that was excellent information. Yeah, I love hearing about the new technology and how people are using it to, better situations. Here a lot of real estate investors, farmers, other entrepreneurs that are listening on this call can find so much benefit out of this. How do the listeners get in touch with you?
Probably our best way is to go to our website. We have several depending on the vertical that we serve. So you can always start by going to Dronifi.com, and that's DRONIFI.com. We also have Dronifi CRE, and on the agricultural side, we have FarmSolutions.com, and we have a site for golf and other things. But boy, if they reach out to me through any of those channels, the message will get to me.
Awesome. Jon, thank you so much for taking the time and giving us some insight on your company and your services. And we look forward to connect with you again soon at another time. Have a great week.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you. Appreciate your time as well.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwayneLClark.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.